Well, we don't normally do interview style videos,
No.
but we thought we'd summarise our trip because we do get asked a lot of common questions, and we thought it would be a good idea to talk about how we got on.
Totally agree. Some of the questions were like our information source before we left. What did we do?
Yeah, so we were banking on no internet in the Kimberley because when we left, Starlink was not an option, and all we had was Iridium Go, so no web surfing capability at all. So I'm an advocate for SAS Planet. There is OpenCPN, but I find SAS Planet much easier to use, and I downloaded imagery for the entire way around Australia, and I put in all the anchor points, information points right around Australia. So I spent months creating that file, probably years really, and that was our primary source. But outside of that, we used Zulu Waterways. That was very helpful. The Kimberley Coast Cruising Yacht Club, which you enjoyed because that was...
Yeah, it was like a treasure hunt. It gave you things to look for.
Clues.
And then you had to go and find it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
But very valuable, and it let you know what you could see. So that one was definitely worth joining, going through the Kimberley. Darwin Sailing Club, the website from them has got Dennis Ford's sailing tips. That was fantastic. That had other bits that Kimberley Coast Cruising Yacht didn't have. And then the Fremantle Sailing Club Cruising Guide was pretty good, and that covered all of Western Australia, which was a vast region. So that's how we planned our trip to get round.
So, what was your favourite location?
So we've done a bit of preparing, obviously, to think about these things. My favourites are split between three rivers. I'd probably say the Mitchell River was my favourite, but just out picking Twin Falls in the King George River and the Berkeley River in Casuarina Creek with the No Regrets sitting at the base of the falls. What did you think?
I agree. Kimberley was definitely one of my favourites. The Mitchell River, Berkeley, King George, Twin Falls, with No Regrets at the base. So yeah, so similar.
Yeah, they were our big three. And we both agree that it's just spectacular coastline. It's
Totally
hard to miss.
So what about your second favourite?
You didn't like the cold, but I liked Tasmania. The wild southwest. I love remote regions, so that's probably why the Kimberley I tick, and southwest Tasmania. That was spectacular. The huge cliffs of Cape Rule, up the west coast. The fishing was good, huge tuna. So yeah, that was my spectacular. What about your favourite?
Yeah, not a fan of the cold weather at all. But no, Exmouth at Ningaloo was probably my favourite, and swimming with the whale sharks. So yes, I've always wanted to get to the whale sharks. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. Okay, what about what was our toughest passage, do you reckon?
We both agree it was the west coast of Western Australia. And actually was for us probably Coral Bay to Shark Bay. That was probably the worst, but all the west coast was tough. It was only 117 nautical miles. Should only take us about 16 hours at 6-7 knots, so almost day sailable. I actually measured our tracks on the GPS. We actually travelled 160 nautical miles back and forth. It took us 31 hours. Our rule velocity made good in a straight line was only 3.8 knots. It was just pounding waves, howling wind, relentless.
It was extremely hard. So we decided to actually tack and sail that distance, not motor, where the others motored for their own reasons. Layla found it challenging to keep tacking, with one wanting to sleep. Poor Singularity was such a shallow, small boat, shorter waterline. They just ploughed, and it was
they pitched a lot.
Yeah, it was challenging.
And our self-tacking jib made that easy because one person could operate the whole boat, just back and forth tacking, no letting off sheet lines. Yeah. So we love our self-tacking jib. It is the ultimate for pointing high into the wind, and it's really controllable, and in strong winds, easy to control. And
we just found we travelled better by tacking than going head into it with the motor.
We were slapping more going straight into it, and just coming off 30 degrees apparent. It was still horrible, but
it was shit. Sorry for my language.
It was shit.
It was shit.
We have a bit of a catch thing with our shirts. It was shit, and it was shit.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So what was our longest passage, Jim?
Yep. So our longest passage was crossing the Great Australian Bight. It was one continuous leg of 537 nautical miles from Middle Island to Ceduna. We left very late in the evening, just before sunset. So you could have done it in 3 nights, but the weather was more favourable for us to do it in 4 nights. But really, it was a great passage. We sailed for a day, and then maybe half motor sailed the next day, and then motored for the last 2 bits into Ceduna. It was flat, no swell.
Yeah.
It was easy. Like we just picked the right weather window, and it was a good crossing.
It was good. The only thing is, I hate sailing at night. So yeah, I would have preferred 3 nights, but we had the 4th one. It just made it more comfortable than harder one. So
our second longest.
Second longest, but the one I probably was the second longest, but the one I probably hated the most was the Gulf of Carpentaria, which was only 317 nautical miles. So it was a lot shorter, but it was like a washing machine. It was just uncomfortable.
We had 3 directions of waves coming at us from direction the wind hadn't blown in for the weeks prior. Had to be current related, but it was not a comfortable passage, but not dangerous. It was just uncomfortable.
Yeah. All right. So we covered our longest passages. What was the biggest wave?
Yeah, we get asked that. Where were the biggest waves?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest waves probably would have been West Coast Tasmania. I think probably the biggest there when we headed up there, because there was a change coming towards us. But they were 5, 6, maybe 7 meters at times, but they were long spaced. It was just like driving through the gentle hills. It wasn't a challenge, and we had to motor for some of it because there wasn't a lot of wind. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't breaking waves.
No,
but it was just
quite.
But they were daunting. You'd disappear. The whole boat would disappear down them. It was quite amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So that was so that was our biggest waves. Our strongest winds.
The strongest winds. I mean, it was windy down the west coast of Australia. Strongest wind was actually Trouser Point on Flinders Island. Everywhere else was 17 knots, but over Mount Strzelecki it funneled, and we had sustained 40 knots to 50 knots for the whole time we pulled in there, and we had to pull in because we had some engine troubles on Layla. So we were sort of stuck, but it was howling.
It was a challenge to put the anchor down and keep the boat straight when we're going back. So our anchor was basically nearly on the beach. So then we put just about all our chain out. So we were actually sat quite comfortable. Poor Layla, monos without the bridle. I feel sorry for them. They were kept on sailing on the spot,
like tacking back and forth on anchor. Well, I'd got over to help Pete. I should have videoed with the gimbal camera. He was heeling 5 to 6 times worse than we heel at the most with all wind pressure in our sails. So when we came back, we just shut the cabin up. We watched TV and we wouldn't have known any different. But
we were cautious because we knew if we dragged.
We had our anchor alarms on.
We had a lot of drag room, so we were completely safe.
Yeah.
But I did sleep up in case we had to get moving. Nothing worse being cold and having to jump out of bed and trying to find clothes and get moving. I just slept fully clothed.
Whereas I felt all right. The anchor had been down for quite a few hours and we had everything out and we hadn't moved at all. So, but that was incredibly windy.
Yeah. All right. What were we least prepared for? What part of the coast do you reckon?
After we got to Gove, we were heading to Hole in the Wall, the Gulgari Rip. We had to round Cape Wilberforce. Do you think that's probably where you think we got caught?
Oh yes, I remember this.
So yes, we didn't read the charts. We were so fixated on getting to the Gulgari Rip in time, because you have to get there at slack water because it flows at 11, 12 knots. So there's no way, we can't even motor at half that speed. So we were trying to get that right, and we didn't notice Cape Wilberforce showed rough water currents around the point, and we went around that with 25 knots of wind on tide, and it was a real sharp, nasty chop. So they were standing over the back, I remember, above our solar paddles.
Oh yeah, and I remember videoing them. Holy crap!
Yeah, it was quite scary.
Yeah, and we did radio to Layla to shut their
companionway
in case one came over, and it would have flowed down. It was just more for courtesy. But
so it was all right in the end.
They were fine. Yeah, but everyone was fine. So,
but it was caught us off guard. That was probably the only spot we got caught off guard.
Yeah,
quite significantly. So everything else we were quite good.
And we could have deviated and just not gone through,
or gone wider.
Yeah, but we felt safe in what we were doing. So
yeah, that's right. We knew you had the boat in control. We were motoring. We weren't taking risks with that. So it was all good in the end. But all right, food. You did a lot of the planning.
Food. We had 4 months to plan for in the Kimberley. 4 months. I've never planned for 4 months of living without any
option to shop.
Access to a supermarket. Like, we've travelled overseas, and that's fine. We know that we can get to port and find food, so that was all right. So what I normally do on a boat, you cook the same way you would cook at home. You don't do anything different. You don't change your whole meal plan.
And it's the same, similar meals.
You stick the same
over.
thing. So I just did basically a 3 to 4 week meal plan, and then just
Times it by 3 or 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then worked out, okay, they're the meals I'm having. This is basically the quantity of products that I'm going to need if I make those meals. But then you can still play around with it. It's not like you're set with those, but it gave us a starting point.
But we substituted frozen peas, etc., for tin peas.
Good old tin peas.
Which I don't mind. I've got used to now, and now there's big complaints.
Well, no.
But
and we've also had dried egg or egg replacement, which was great, a product, and
good in pancakes.
Deb into mash, so we could make pancakes and
you extended the mashed potatoes with Deb into mash. So
those things helped a bit. And our fruit and veg, like, I really watched, and I just made sure I maintained those every couple of days, where I made sure that they were dry, they're in the fridge, they were wrapped, they're wrapping. Like, we use chucks, so I don't use too much paper towel, and they were just kept on replacing them. So
you can wash the chucks and reuse the chucks. We're not disposing paper towel all the time.
Yeah, because your rubbish is, you had to carry your own rubbish for 4 months, so you're limited to how much rubbish you can take.
So we stripped all the cardboard off everything, we reduced everything, and then any cans I crushed out on a board with a hammer, making flat as flat.
Yep.
Because we had to carry 4 months worth of rubbish, so we didn't carry too much.
So I also use a diluted version of bleach, which we did when we went to New Caledonia. So where we had to bleach our product because it just can upset your stomach. So we did the same to help take some of the bacteria away from the fruit and vegetables, just to see if that helped to mark, and they did. Like they lasted really quite well. I was impressed.
Weeks and weeks longer.
Yeah, more than I expected, more than they would ever at home, because you just don't fuss over them as much. So
yeah, that definitely works. So.
Yeah. But I must admit, we packed way too much powdered milk, and
we both drink a lot of milk. Joe has a nice coffee in the morning. I drink a lot of milk. So we thought we calculated it all, but we did have a bit too much.
Yeah, I think it made us down to Tasmania. So
Tasmania and back even, I think. We were still on the same powdered milk a year later, so lucky it keeps. So but we did find it a little bit amusing. So we were never short.
Yeah.
We probably caught more fish than we thought that we were banking on.
And we always had it where with 3 boats, whoever caught the fish, everyone pulled their lines in, we shared the fish. So we always had fresh fish.
Because you always catch, not little fish, you catch a big Spanish mackerel, like it's something big, or a big tuna. So we that worked well with the boat.
Okay, so we covered those basics. What about communication in the Kimberley, where we had away from everything?
Starlink now is the game changer. We had the Iridium Go, but you can't do other than basic SMSing, weather downloading, and emails with no real attachments. It's text based. That's it. So now you could stream Netflix if you were so inclined. I don't know why you would. I miss the scenery, but certainly easier. You can research things now. It's great, and you can just switch on and make a normal phone call with the making Wi-Fi calling. So it's fantastic. So. We have a self-fire booster on the boat as well, with the antenna right at the top of the mast. It gives us good mobile phone range. One thing I'll note on that is we used Audi as a carrier because it's cheaper, much Joanne's discussed. But that is Telstra, but it's not Telstra. That's limited Telstra. Yep. So all down the west coast of Western Australia, South Australia, across the Gulf, across all the Great Australian Bight and into Ceduna, we had no cover. Even though we had Telstra signal, we could detect it, because
the others who had true Telstra had cover,
and without boosters, and we're making phone calls, and it drove us nuts. And it turned out it's Telstra, you either Telstra or Boost. Everyone else is a compromise. So
and also with Starlink, we can't get text messages because we're not with true Telstra. So I must admit, like, Chris is wanting to save money. He's big on being. Saving $1.
And they upset me a long time ago, so I hold a grudge.
He held a grudge, so anyway.
But look,
that is probably our something that we have to consider.
But most people know messages on Messenger, or WhatsApp now we're starting to use a little bit, getting there.
But that's okay. But it's when you need confirmation regarding
The bank
or a website that you have secured
sending
logins.
an SMS verification.
Yeah,
and then we're stuck.
That's the challenge. All right, so we have gone for realistically huge periods where we had no access to fuel.
Yeah, so so we worked out we kept a fairly accurate fuel. I don't think we missed any, but so we did 11,300 or 11,700 nautical miles around over just over 2 years. I calculate we used about 2,600 litres of diesel. So it sounds a lot, but we did travel a long way. There was a lot of rivers we had to motor. That also runs the generator for us, which we use to fill the dive compressor. So it was actually not bad. I think for a lot of boats, it's pretty light on consumption. No Regrets only has 480 litres fuel capacity. We carried 3 jerry cans with 60 litres of fuel extra for the Kimberley. And we didn't top up in Dogleg Creek because we were okay. We knew we were low, but we had enough to get to Broome. And it's very expensive there. Back then it was $3 a litre. It's like double or more of the Bowser price, but it's in a very remote spot. Like there's big cost for them to get it there, so I think it's fair. But yeah, we didn't have to, so we got to Broome with like 17 litres in each tank or something. But we knew we were okay. We were going to sail if we had to, so that was all good. But yeah, we were lucky we could sail through the Kimberley. The Seawind 1260 is a fairly lightweight cat, and with the 6-8 knots, maybe all you're getting. We were able to move along, and if we were pointing into the wind, our apparent would go up, and we actually sailed all right.
But the tender fuel,
dinghy fuel. So I remember having the conversations in the forums, and I thought, oh, they're ridiculous how much fuel they think they need. Thinking of how much I use in a month and calculating it by 6 or 4, we were way short. We would have, if we were on our own, we would have only done a third of what we wanted. So because we shared between 3 boats, that worked out well, and we conserved fuel, and we used our tender the most because it was the biggest. And with Crocs, we felt safer in it, and we had a bigger motor, we could get on the plane faster. So it worked out, but yeah, certainly. Look at the distances you have to travel. I remember just the King's Cascade was like...
That was a long trip.
It was like 20 mile in, 20 mile back by tender. Like, it was a long way and a lot more fuel than you expect.
And you want to go quite quickly because you've got a lot of climbing to do, and you want to get back before dark. So
and limited tide. Like you're racing the tide. Like you've only got a 4-hour window, and you might have to travel a couple of hours. So But yeah, we definitely would have taken more if we do it again if we're on our own. But with or without anyone else, we'll be taking more dinghy fuel because that caught us out. So.
All right, so the East Coast has a lot of bar crossings.
Yeah, we get asked a lot about the bar crossings.
Yeah, well, it is to some people a huge deal. Once you've done a few, I suppose we don't see them as critical anymore.
We never came down from Queensland much to hit them. We went up over the top, and then through the Kimberley, we had to factor everything around the tide. It became the normality of... going in at high tide, so crossing the bar's no different. You cross at high tide, so I guess we weren't too bad. And a lot of now, like Lakes Entrance, is maintained and it's a lot deeper. But
the cameras, the cameras on the bars, they help.
New South Wales, the webcams on for the bar crossings, they were very good. You can see what's happening in real time, so that was very good service. They're doing well there. You're a bit nervous in the early ones, but I must admit the last video we even got a comment on there saying I'm the one that was panicking and you didn't really care.
No, I think after...
That was Port Macquarie.
I think after Port McDonald's, the big swell going into that one, that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I think
both of us. That was not good for either of us.
That was...
Yeah, we were, 21 knots.
Oh, far
and
out.
that wasn't a bar crossing, that was just the entire bay. That was miles wide.
Yeah.
It just... breaks coming in there if there's big swell.
That scares me. I have this fear of nose diving, which
pitch poling.
The chances are ridiculously slim. Turning sideways, you've probably got more chance of turning sideways and then losing control.
Broaching and getting rolled. But I must admit, 21 knots in shallow water there. The pitch poling was a reality, but
I know.
I must admit the bow kept up. Our nose was light. We surfed in, but I call it white knuckle. I was white knuckle on the wheel and not letting go.
And the worst thing is, I had to sleep and then think about going back out.
Yeah, you were terrified of going back.
I was terrified going back out because I thought, oh my God, I've still got to go through that. But going out was just...
There was nothing. We just drove out.
Yeah,
Didn't even see breaking water.
But anyway. So our bar crossings, and we also we check the weather. Yeah. We only go in at the right tide times.
this sailing to a schedule, as they talk about, is the exact thing. You only go when it's good. Wind, swell, everything favourable, then you go.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right, our summary. Well, there was just a blur of highlights in 2 years. Picking out what are our favourites is actually a hard call, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. I must admit.
Yeah, actually, we'll say, okay, the Mitchell, but there was so many. Everything from lot down west coast of Western Australia. There were some things we just couldn't get to with the weather. I'd love to do again, but obviously we'd have to go back into the slight hard weather. We saw most of what we wanted to see.
But it's also the people we met. So it's not...
Yeah.
Sometimes the people you meet helps create especially a spot that you would never have considered.
We met people from north of Perth up in the Kimberley,
Honeymoon
Bay that we caught up with there, and then again back in
Fremantle and Perth.
Yeah, then we met them down south. They came down and met us at the next...
Albany.
Down in Albany.
And they came to stay with us.
And you know, even to Crocodile Creek, meeting a crazy Nathan on a crazy jet ski.
He was awesome.
And then helping us out in Exmouth. The people we met were fantastic.
Like in Crocodile Creek, when Nathan turned up with that pineapple
and a couple oranges, I think
oh
it
my
was.
God, after 4 months of no fresh fruit, but we drawled over that pineapple. He was just like the awesome thing. So we were able to celebrate his birthday the next day.
But we met people everywhere. Awesome. It was just people that wanted to meet us because they had other Seawinds along the way. The one thing that was difficult is YouTube is a little bit behind real time. And so a lot of people, there would have been a lot more people we could have met, but unfortunately when the post goes live, it's like this post. We're posting that we've just finished going around Australia, but we're sitting in Vanuatu. It's 4 months behind. It takes us that long to catch up and to edit the video. So
it would be nice to
get closer, but sometimes it's too much.
The reality is, by the time you explore the location, and then you move and you do boat maintenance and then you edit, the weeks go.
And normally we buffer a little bit because there's an off season when we're not cruising. And then we catch up in that, and then when we head off, we're close, and then it gradually pulls out again, which is what's happening. I don't feel
like we had an off season yet. I just feel like we've been go. So completing around Australia and then going. Yeah. We're heading off.
So it took us 26 months. It was, apart from a bit of a break in Adelaide that we stopped for, it was go. If we weren't moving, we were doing something, and it wasn't too often that we were stuck on the boat for bad weather. It was 2 years of go.
Yep. Yeah.
So it was very active, but
it was awesome.
It was awesome. You could do it in a year. You will be very rushed, and I don't think you'll get Tassie in there, or you're super rushed. But I would say 2 years was a rush.
Yeah, definitely.
You can see it all, but you are busy. So, but it was fantastic trip. So if you're thinking of a circumnavigation of Australia, which they say is equivalent to going around the world, you'll have hot tropics to wild roaring 40s. You can get everything.
Yeah.
But it is, as I talked you into it at the start, it's only a day hop every day.
That is something that I found challenging. Oh, well, two things. It's a long way around Australia.
It's a bloody long
way around
it's
Australia.
Like your signpost you got there. We'll get a photo of that up. And it's a bloody long way.
So a long way around, but Krista said it's a day at a time, sail at a time. So
it's one day at a time.
Yeah, so that got me through, and then reality, that's what it was.
And then once we got halfway, you were halfway.
My second thing was crocodiles. Like I was just petrified of sitting in a tender or going ashore with crocodiles. So
actually, I think all three women were terrified of the crocodiles.
Yeah. By the end of it,
some of them in the early parts saying they were never getting off their boat, and then there are sections that I remember in Berkeley or King George, not far into it, wading across waist deep water, which I look in hindsight and I think it's probably a bit risky, that bit there. It was a little bit too deep on the edge. But you have to calculate your risk.
Yes,
and
the risk.
Really, you have to do something pretty stupid. The crocodiles are not that bad. Never use that as an excuse not to go, because they are not that bad. They're actually fascinating.
Well,
from this boat.
I don't classify them as fascinating.
Not so fascinating from the tender.
I don't even still then. No,
so,
they just creep me out. But that's like spiders and snakes. I just not a fan.
But no, it was good. So yeah, if you're thinking of doing the trip, don't hesitate. I would go. It is fantastic. That's a wrap.
Done.
That's a wrap.